Welcome, everyone. I'm here today with my friend Justin Mullinix. We are friends from Facebook. Justin, how long have we been friends?
Oh man, feels like an eternity.
It's
Um,
probably been, what, 3 years, you think? Where did we first meet? You remember?
I don't know.
It's on Facebook. I know that.
Definitely on Facebook, and so, I mean, you and I are both members of a few different groups. So it was in one of the groups at least a couple years ago, probably. I mean, we've been at it for a while now.
hmm Yeah, yeah. We go hammer and tong a lot, and we've never had an opportunity. Actually, it's the first time I've actually met Justin. His camera's out, so he's not going to be on face to face, but live. This is the first time I've been able to meet him. So, Justin, it's very nice to meet you. I'm glad to actually have the opportunity to meet you and interact on these things on a personal level. What can you tell just a little bit about yourself? You're a musician, aren't you?
Yes,
Can you
I'm a
remember that?
full-time musician. I record bands, produce them, and I'm in a band. And we tour around and do the whole band thing, and do pretty well.
What's the name of the band?
Stokeswood.
Okay, cool. That's great. And you're kind of a jack of all with musical instruments, I guess. You play just about everything.
Yeah, I grew up in a musical family, and ended up getting. Well, my parents advised me to stick to one thing and be really good at it so I could get work. I instead went out and just learned everything I could.
That sounds
Always rebellious, right?
well. That sounds like me. Only I don't know anything. I'm kind of a jack of all, but I can't play anything at all. So anyway, well, that's great. I'm a dental technician, live in Kansas City area, um, and you're a skeptic, religious. Do you have anything to add to that regarding your religious perspective?
I have never been religious. My father's religious, considers himself a Christian, um, but he is, like many other Christians, like you probably wouldn't consider him a Christian, although he does call himself a Christian. My mother is into Jesus, but she's also into Buddha, and she's into anybody who is peaceful and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Little
Sure.
maybe new agey. She's become a little less new agey in her old age, um, so I grew up in a family where my parents were searching themselves for what they believed in, and they encouraged the same in me. And for a while, I would say, I remember the first time I went to church with a friend, and I had already been really into like Roman and Greek mythology, and I liked comic books, and I liked fantastic things,
Hmm.
um, and any lore, mythology, and stuff like that. And I remember the first time I went to church, going in and sitting there, and them telling a story, um, proclaiming it as truth, like this is actual history here.
Hmm.
And I just looked around incredulously, like, like, is this really what's going on? It never, I could never distinguish any of the supernatural beliefs of any of the major religions between, I couldn't distinguish them from the ancient Roman mythology that nobody believes in anymore, or comic books for that matter.
Hmm.
um, So my view, I was a little into Eastern philosophy when I was younger. It was very appealing to me. I really wanted to believe in having a spirit and going somewhere after you die, um, and all these things. I really wanted to, but not able to. And the more that I studied it, the more skeptical I got of it.
Hmm.
Science very heavily influenced me from the get-go. And I was just very skeptical in a scientific way, not in a pure philosophical skepticism where I'm just skeptical of everything. Just for I don't do pretend doubt. I don't doubt something just because I can.
Yeah.
So so that
And
kind
you,
of
what was the last thing you said? You don't doubt something because of what?
just because I can. I don't do pretend doubt. I don't
Oh, I see.
pretend
Okay.
doubt something that I think is true. I'm not just an over. I don't. Skepticism doesn't more of a scientific skeptic than I am a skeptic all around.
Right.
And I'm not a cynic either. I'm an optimist.
Okay. Well, good. All right. Well, and I'm, as you well know, I'm a born again Christian, um, and I was raised in a Christian home with my mom being a Christian. My father is not a believer. And I had a born again experience when I was 20. I think it was 20 years old. I'm 48 now. So for me, I really like rational inquiry. I find the whole idea of ultimate issues to be fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something I've always found. I'm kind of self-taught. I don't have much education. In fact, I nearly flunked out of high school and didn't really see a purpose in anything until I was born again, and then I kind of developed an interest for learning at that time. So I'm kind of a scrapper when it comes to learning. I just kind of learn things here and there. I'm not eloquent or highbrow at all in the stuff that I know. But when I find interest in something, I latch onto it. Would it be fair to say that the two of us are both seeking salvation? And I don't mean in the ultimate sense of Jesus Christ making atonement for our sins necessarily. I'm saying a very general sense. Plato had this idea called saving the phenomenon of existence, and it basically meant that we all want to save existence, save reality. In fact, I would say this is what the whole history goes through cycles, and you have times of skepticism, and you have times of revival in a certain way, and it goes through cycles over and over and over again. And what it is there will be an impasse, say philosophically speaking, or even existentially, which usually the philosophical leads to existentialism, pessimism, and then you will have a new synthesis come in, kind of Hegelian, you might say, where you have a new kind of a new beginning, where you have reaffirmed hope in existence and the ability to save the phenomenon of existence. So that's what science is all about. It's like saying, I want to discover this world. I want to find what it's all about. I want to promote humanity. I want to promote existence. Would it be fair to say that we're both, in a sense, seeking out? Now, I'm believing in an eternal salvation, but you, even in a temporal sense, would it be fair to say that you are seeking for salvation?
I think that a lot of my interest in philosophy does have to do with how people will act on their beliefs in the future, and how mankind is affected by ideologies and ideas and beliefs and stuff like that. So in a certain aspect, yeah, absolutely, I think it's important. Obviously not in the same exact, not in the in eternal way that you do, not me being eternal or any one of us being eternal,
Mm-hmm.
But us being here, being born, and then having to cope with what we're presented with.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we do care for our children. We care for other people. We have empathy for. We don't want to hurt, and we also are like, oh, you know what? It'd be nice if I didn't hurt that person, and hopefully, promoting that for all of our sakes. So in a way, yeah, I guess you could say that.
Okay, great. All right, so let's go ahead and move into our main wrangling here that we're here for. We have this argument going. I have an argument. It's like I'm a one-trick pony, you might say. Yeah, and I've got one argument that I focus on, but the reason I focus on it because it's the argument, and if this argument fails, then really it's the foundation for it, and if it fails, then pretty much everything else fails. It could be just it's fundamental and foundational, and it is an argument from existence. And I don't know, you can't count how many times we've argued this.
I could repeat it back.
Well, you can if you want.
No, go ahead. I want you to
okay.
Get it out there for the public.
Okay. All right. Well, basically what it is that I have to have two fundamental presuppositions, and this is where I differ with a lot of my Christian brothers. It's really cool right now to be a presuppositionalist. my argument is that presuppositionalism is really not even historical, not in the way it's presented by Dr. Van Til. But it's the cool thing now, especially when I'm a Reformed Baptist, and so or Calvinistic. So in my circles, it's really cool to be presuppositionalist, but I'm not.
Right.
And so a presuppositionalist says that you must begin with the presupposition of God's existence, and you've got to start from there.
Or else you can't know anything, basically.
Right, and in a sense, you can't know anything. But my argument would be the presuppositionalist can't know that God must be a presupposition. You know what I'm saying?
Sure,
The same thing is.
Agree with that. You could add it, then you wouldn't know. You know, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't take that stand. I'd say that I have to have two presuppositions, and it's the presupposition that all of my interlocutors up to this point have accepted, which is the basic reliability of sense perception. That doesn't mean that I have perfect perception, but I do say that it's the only connection I have to the external world. And the only thing I'm really needing for my sense perception is that I, as an inquirer, exist. So, and that's all I need to know. Some people say, well, all you can prove is solipsism. And I say, well, I don't care if it's solipsism or not. Or solipsism is that I'm the only one that exists and everything else could be an illusion or anything like that. I could just be a brain in a vat or something. That's fine. It doesn't really matter to me. If I can have sense perception enough for me to know that I, as an inquirer, exist, you can say, well, I don't grant you that. Well, then there's no inquiry because there's no inquirer. Okay, so it's fundamental that you have basic sense perception as a presupposition, and then secondly that you have the law of non-contradiction, that you have rational coherence in your inquiry. And if you don't have that, you also have no inquiry. Those two things must be. You've got to have sense perception for inquiry, and you've got to have a rational framework through which, or mechanism by which you can measure propositions. And so given those two fundamental presuppositions, I can deduce logically, as I empirically, really my argument is a scientific one, if I, as an inquirer, exist, I can empirically know that I exist. I am here and I am inquiring of that. And again, it's going back to Descartes' cogito ergo sum argument. I think, therefore I am. If I have that, then I know that I happen, that I came into existence, that I am not, that I'm subject to other things. I can, trip and fall. I can get sunburn. I can, I'm getting older, and that which changes is contingent by definition. It's dependent for existence. I got to eat. I got to drink, or I will not survive. And so the argument goes that if something contingent exists, and if the law of non-contradiction holds true, which says something cannot be and not be at the same time in the same relationship, I had to be created by something, somewhere, somehow, that has the attribute of self-existence. And if you want to deny that, then you have to say that contingency created itself before it exists. And to do that, to affirm that, would be to deny the law of non-contradiction. And once you deny non-contradiction, the exact opposite of whatever you're purporting is also true at that same instance. It's called the principle of explosion. Everything explodes, and there's no understanding, there's no reality at all. Now, that's my argument, and why don't you give your objection to my argument? We can discuss it.
Okay. Well, the funny thing is that I don't think that holding a belief in a first cause is irrational. I myself don't feel comfortable enough in what I consider my knowledge to say, yes, I'm absolutely sure there was a first cause. But I do, and more so because of my me going up against the Kalam cosmological argument, think that in a certain way it is a justified belief to say, you know what, I'm throwing in with the first cause over infinite regress. I think that's pretty reasonable. Now, as far as you positing a first cause, I think you know that if that was all you were doing, I'd probably be like, okay, cool, great. But it's the other things you add to the first cause that we tend to get mixed up about, like making it personal, making it intelligent, making it a deity, making it, in essence, a disembodied mind that exists in some fashion somewhere, right? I mean, that's what you get to. Like, that's what you extrapolate after that, correct?
No, I mean, you made a big mistake already. Can we talk about it?
Okay.
Or you can continue, I guess, if you want to. If you have more to say.
So, obviously, you've heard me talk about several times the problem with the ex nihilo argument that you go into, how it has to be. I mean, this is also an extrapolation from what you're doing. Right? You're saying that the contingent stuff has to be created ex nihilo from something that is non-contingent.
No, from nothing.
That is something that is self-existent has to create from nothing all of contingency.
Right.
Right. That is part of your argument.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's necessary.
So I feel like this is like where we really start to split off. Is the standards that you're using to say, well, it's ridiculous that something can come out of nothing, because causality is a specific thing. It has to be a specific way. But as soon as we get to the non-contingent creating contingency, causality breaks down completely, and all of a sudden we're left with, well, there was no actual causal relationship. You can't cause something that doesn't exist to do anything, right? And this, I feel like even more recently, this has been the main objection we get stuck on. Correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what I've kind of said to you was, yes, something out of nothing is incoherent, and if you want to believe in a first cause, I feel like that's pretty justified. I don't necessarily believe it. I don't feel justified in believing it myself. It's not very useful to me. It's not a useful hypothesis. It doesn't do anything. I could arbitrarily believe it, say, yeah, sure, it sounds like a reasonable idea. But when you get down to saying something can come from nothing, everything has to have this, has to be created, and contingency is dependent on non-contingency. All of a sudden you have this gap where it's there's God, there's the deity, the non-contingent, and then that has to actually do something, everything else. And that's where things get fuzzy. That's where causality breaks down for me, and I can't make that leap over there. So while I agree with you in one sense that sure, it sounds pretty reasonable that there could be one source of everything that you see currently, I don't see how you extrapolate that it has to be a creation ex nihilo event.
Okay. All right. Yeah, a couple issues here that I struggle with. All right. So you said you believe that it is a justified belief to believe in an infinite regress.
No, it says a justified belief to believe in a first cause. I believe I don't justify it myself, but I do not believe somebody's irrational for thinking that there's a first cause over an infinite regress.
Oh no, I'm talking about your view. You believe it's a true justified belief, or justified belief to say that there is no first cause, right?
No. I do believe that my personal beliefs is it's probably something that I can't even conceive of. It's probably something that has nothing to do with the actual laws of this universe, if that's what we're talking about. If we're talking about, of course, I do start from the Big Bang, so that kind of changes a little bit between us.
Okay, well, you're positing a starting, and you just said a minute ago that you're okay with an infinite regress, and now you're saying you're not okay with an infinite regress, and then you referred to a Big Bang.
It was more reasonable. I said it was reasonable for someone to justify a belief in a first cause over an infinite regress. I'm not going to sit here and say that I have justified a belief in an infinite regress now.
Okay, so you would not hold an infinite regress. You're just saying I don't know.
Yeah, I absolutely do not know.
Okay, so you realize that that's the fallacy of special pleading.
That I don't know?
Yeah, that's not an
Explain,
argument.
please.
In other words, you're saying. In other words, you're saying, I could. It could be something that I do not know about. Like I could say, I've got blue demons that live under my sink, but you can never see them because they hide when you look for them. That would be it's violating the principle of parsimony. You need to take the simplest answer, and you cannot make it more complicated than what is necessary, and that's what you're doing.
No,
We can't deal with the realm that we don't live in. We have to deal with the realm in which we are living right now.
sure, I
We can't
completely
just
agree.
postulate.
That's part of my objection for you for the creation ex nihilo, is the fact that that doesn't jive with causality by no definition I've ever heard.
Okay, well, my argument is that not only does it um, is it a justified view of causality, it's the only view of causality, because in order to deny creation ex nihilo, you have to deny the law of non-contradiction, you have to deny rational coherence, or the law of identity, which we've gone around and around about. Now, remember, my favorite question to you is, if in fact it is not creation ex nihilo and God made, or this self-existent being made the universe out of some pre-existent material, is that pre-existent material self-existent?
Yeah, I mean, that's just complete conjecture to me, because what I'm saying is that it is incoherent to think that. It is incoherent to think that. Well, first of all, I don't know if two pre-existing things could exist or not.
They
I mean,
can't.
I understand you don't.
No, they can't. It's not possible, because they have to be different in some respect, and one would have to be different than the other, and one would have to be above the other, and the one that's above would be self-existent, and the one that's not would be contingent.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I mean, how I don't have any access to information that would supply me with anything to justify a belief with about whether or not a self-existent something. There can be two self-existent things, or there has to be one self-existent thing, or whether or not there has to be creation ex nihilo for. I mean, I don't even know how to extrapolate.
Well, I'm logically extrapolating it for you now, and you can rebut it if you can.
Yes, well, I mean, okay. So in the same regard, how can you affect something that doesn't exist yet?
Well, if you are self-existent, and if you are wanting to create contingency, you must create it ex nihilo, because that's what contingent means. Contingent means dependent for its existence. That's what the word means.
Sure. I mean, you're backing it up with your own definition. You're basically saying, well, it's that way because it's defined that way.
Well, that's what the word means. I mean, can you define it otherwise without violating the law of identity?
I don't know if it would. I don't know what the state of being would be in a pre-Big Bang condition, or in a transcendent condition. I don't know what that would entail.
Well, it certainly wouldn't violate rationality, don't you think?
Currently, causality does entail a causal relationship between two things that exist.
If you got contingency, we're doing acting upon contingency.
The fact that contingency does exist. So if we're going to extrapolate from there, and we're going to invoke causality, causality requires a causal relationship, and a causal relationship requires something to affect and something to be affected.
Well, it requires efficiency. All right, it's got to have something doing the action, but it doesn't have to have a material cause if, in fact, the material itself is contingent by definition.
I don't really make a distinction between a material cause and an efficient cause in the way that you do. I don't think. I also don't believe that numbers exist by themselves and Platonic entities and stuff like that. I don't understand the concept of having an efficient cause without a material cause is incoherent to me. I don't even know where to go with that.
Well, you've used that argument before.
Give me. I've used the argument of what?
You said it's possible to have a material cause without an efficient cause, which is ridiculous, but that's what you've argued.
Well, I think that they're basically two sides of the same coin. There's not one without the other. If you're talking about it in the way that we're talking about it, a material cause and an efficient cause go hand in hand.
They're not the same thing.
I know they're not the same. I know they're traditionally not spoken of as the same thing, but I also don't believe in the is-not distinction or dualism or all sorts of stuff like that. So I can become a quietist on some issues where I just don't even think there's a meaningful distinction, even though it certainly is defined as an efficient cause is the thing doing it, and the material cause is the material that's out of or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sorry. If anybody's watching this, it's probably they have no idea what we're talking about. If you can Google and Wikipedia 4 causes, it's Aristotle's, and actually there are more than 4, but Aristotle had broken down causality into several different types of causes, and that's the language we're using. I apologize to somebody who might be watching, but if you just Google 4
right,
causes.
You can start with efficient cause and material cause and probably go from there. See what we're talking about. But then again, I still don't see. I don't know of any state where there can be an efficient cause without a material cause. And when scientists talk about causes, they just use material. They just use cause, material cause. There's no distinguishing between a material and efficient cause. They are both together.
Yeah, we're living in an age of incredible ignorance in the scientific community about things metaphysical. In fact, it's considered pornographic inquiry to be thoughtful in a metaphysical sense with the scientists, and it's really quite pathetic stuff that is said and the type of games that they play, that a lot of times out of ignorance. A lot of the new atheists, it's just pathetic, the things they say. They're so childish and sophomore, and they're so shallow.
Possibly. They would probably say the same thing about you, but I think that that we're all pretty smart. We're just trying to cope with what we got, and you have your way of dealing with that, and I have my way of dealing with it. Some people don't understand the philosophy of science. Logical positivism reigned supreme for a while. It actually, despite its flaws, worked pretty well for some stuff.
No, it didn't. It never worked. It was always stupid.
Okay. I mean, it did. The science that was done under that philosophy still worked. It still produced stuff that worked. It wasn't complete, though. I'm a big fan of Karl Popper and falsification, and I do not reject metaphysical claims out of hand simply because they're metaphysical. Mm-hmm. But I think that, for instance, the existence of an atom was a metaphysical proposition that had you had no way to test it, empirically test it. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't a stupid idea, right? Because it turned out that we found some atoms and stuff. And so, you can't just discredit a metaphysical idea. You can put it on the back burner and say, hey, it's an interesting idea. It'd be nice if we could find a way to test it, or at least to falsify it. So yeah, there's going to be plenty, certainly, of internet atheists, and trust me, I get in fights with them all the time about stuff. I'm a dirty pragmatist. I'm not even a scientific realist, and you better believe that irks some people in the atheist community. But a lot of them don't know the philosophy behind science. I try to take my time to look into it and keep up with it, and but regardless of who we can say, which philosophy of science is better or not, I mean, when scientists today, who are not usually logical positivists, that's kind of a dead philosophy.
Oh yeah.
It's not really around anymore. We have falsification. Scientists are usually pretty careful not to say, this is proven, verified. It's more of a verdict of not false. Every time we've done it, it has not it has not come out false. Mm-hmm. But we all know that changes and things get amended and new evidence comes to light. Maybe one time the experiment goes wrong and they go, huh? What's going on? And they have to fix the hypothesis or theory to go around that. So, I think to be open to new stuff is part of what good science is. And to not sit there and say, verified, done, this is it, this is the end of the line, we figured it out, and this is it. I think that's a pretty naive way to go about doing science.
Agree. I would even say that theologically as well.
Yeah, but on the other hand, that doesn't. But I still think that good science, useful science, stuff that produces results, can still be done without being aware of the philosophical underpinnings of what you're doing.
Okay, let's go to this then. Why is salvation so important to you? And why do you do science? Scientists do it for salvation. They want to save the phenomenon of existence. They want to find meaning in this world.
They do it for all sorts of different reasons. I mean, I think you have to go on a personal basis. I think that part of who we are, and part of the reason we're so successful and it's in the position we're in now is because we like to figure things out. I mean, I think you're putting the cart before the horse kind of thing. I think that the reason we're here to be able to do this is because of the fact that we are good at being inquisitive.
We're purposive, right?
Well, obviously not in the meaning that you mean it. I don't believe that, but
no, I mean just period. I mean there is such a thing as
purpose
toward existence, right?
Well, on an individual level, all of us find all sorts of different purpose in all sorts of different things.
Why is that?
Well, I believe it's from an evolutionary thing, obviously.
So evolution purpose has to be purposive?
No, evolution cannot purpose. It is not a sentient being. Evolution is just a description of why we see the diversity in life we do, and that there's a method to it almost. I know that you could probably take that and make it seem like, well, who did the method? What is this? But I mean, there's laws, there's things that happen. Evolution is within the laws of physics, and as far as I'm concerned, it did happen. Although some details get worked out all the time. It is the best explanation for why we see the diversity in life we do. And I do believe that there are some benefits to being inquisitive, and there are also some benefits to adding agency where none exists.
Okay, but you're speaking in teleological language in order to justify your teleologicalness. And you can't do that. You're assuming the very thing that you are being called to prove in order to say that which exists is true.
Well,
for example,
I don't have to prove that I have purpose.
No, but if you want to be a person who has justification for their existence, this is a fundamental reason. You say that there is no reason to life. Okay, objectively speaking, or according to the universe, there's no reason to life, but you act as if life is the most important thing that there is. Is that correct?
I act as if I have free will too, but I don't believe I do.
So, okay. So how do you justify that contradiction?
I don't feel it's a contradiction.
Well, it doesn't matter what you feel it is.
Well, then it doesn't matter if you feel it is a contradiction. What I'm saying? I don't.
It's not about feeling. It's about rational coherence.
I'm not sitting there going, I have to justify existence.
You don't have to do anything. I mean, right. but you act like everything that inquiry is super duper.
The question is coherent enough to even be answerable. I know that purpose exists after life. After life is here. Like now that we're here, I know that purpose exists. I don't know that purpose existed beforehand. I know there's a phenomenon that we call purpose, and it's something that we have, that we do, and we call it purpose. I don't extend that to the universe itself. No.
Okay, so it's just an issue of blind contradictory faith for you.
It is. I certainly do not consider it that.
I know, because you don't want to, but that's what it is, right?
No, I do not agree with that. You're going to say right afterwards. I'm going to say no.
Okay.
No. I mean, the thing is, I don't have a faith in it because I'm not sitting there going, "This is what I'm faithful in." I'm faithful that there is no purpose. I'm saying that what I know of purpose right now is that I exhibit purpose. I want things. I do things for reasons, for goals. I do that, right?
Yeah.
That's what I know. I know
So
that purpose exists in so much as life exists and shows the traits of what we call purpose.
so your purpose that you existed arose by accident, right?
Uh, uh, by accident, what do you mean by accident? Like it could have been like it was supposed to be another way,
No,
but
where did it come from? I mean, here you've got the I mean, this is why I think
why,
Darwinian evolution is so.
why does a ball sitting on a piece of saran wrap go to the middle?
That's a great point. Does a ball have personhood?
Does it? Does it have the
Is it
personhood?
trying to exist? Is it trying to survive? Is it studying art history?
It's doing something, isn't it?
Well, it's existing, but it doesn't have
It's existing.
personhood.
It's going right down to the middle of that saran wrap like it's got a goal, like it's supposed to be there.
No, it doesn't. I've never said that.
I know.
I'm
I'm
talking
saying.
about Justin Mullinix.
I know. What I'm saying is that we're here under a set of certain physical laws, and we are sitting here going, "Hey, when I do this, this is what I call purpose. I feel like I should do this." Fundamentally, though, it
But
could be
that's not how you live. I mean, you live like you need to do something nice for old ladies, and you're involved in charity and stuff like that. It's not an accident. It's purposive, and it's always geared toward survival. In other words, it's better to exist than to not exist. How does that happen accidentally?
I don't know why do some people commit suicide and feel a purpose to do that and end their life.
Well, is there something wrong with somebody who does that,
Uh,
from your view?
well, from my standpoint, I don't particularly agree with them.
Why?
Is there something wrong in a grand sense, in a way that
I don't need a grand sense. All I need is a little, just a modicum of purpose. That's all I need.
just a little bit of sense is?
Well, I just need purpose. One little bit of purpose, and the whole atheistic paradigm just crumbles.
Well, I mean, to you, obviously, you're going to see it like that because you have a specific belief that does not entail atheism as part of it. So, of course, you're going, well, this is ridiculous. It crumbles automatically. But the fact of the matter is that while I see purpose now, and I see us, look, we did this on purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I believe in essentially a deterministic universe where things are happening. They can only happen one way. And they're playing out from the beginning, right? And although I have no other, kind of like the Hitchens quote, of course I have free will, I have no choice, right?
Yeah, I love this quips.
So here I have what I call choice, I have what I call purpose, I have what I call free will, right? I have a will that I can exercise.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't have done it any other way. And if I had been born you, I would have done it exactly like you. I would have been subject to the same stimuli that you've been subjected to. I would have had the same upbringing, and I would have made the same choices as you.
Okay, why your moral outrage then?
My moral outrage of what?
Anything.
Of anything?
Mm-hmm.
For all sorts of reasons. Morality is a really cool topic, and there's a lot of different nuances to it. There's some situations where there's not a good answer. There's some situations where there's only there's two bad answers, but let's choose the one where I feel somebody could say think of like the trolley problem, right? The train's going down and there's 10 people tied to one track and one person tied to the other, and it's heading towards the one person or heading towards the 10 people, but you could switch it and kill the one person.
Mm-hmm.
Most people under normal circumstances would switch it, say the lives of 10 people are there's no good choice, but the lives of 10 people I'm more morally justified to say. But then you add other things in like, that one person is the only person that can cure cancer, and things get tricky. I personally believe that morality has to do specifically, minus the details of the greater good, individual freedom, all this stuff, but it has specifically to do with how we interact with each other and how we affect each other in a positive or negative way. Now, is there an ultimate meaning for that? No. I think that's just what we call it. There's just fact of the matter is most of us do care about other people and do have a sense of empathy and are able to say, hey, you know what? If I do this, it's probably they're probably going to feel a certain way, and I want to extend the same courtesy to them as I would like them to extend to me. Let's try and figure out how to live together as the social creatures that we are.
Okay, my original question was, why do you have moral outrage if you are deterministic, if the world is deterministic?
Because I have no choice but to. It's kind of like I have no choice to. I mean, it's a valid thing to say. You know,
okay. Okay, so you have moral outrage also that because
do you believe that animals are moral agents?
What's that?
Are animals moral agents?
In a sense, kind of.
Like a dog, or you know, they're held accountable for what they are supposed to do.
No, but they do have a moral sense about them. You know, you've seen the videos on YouTube and stuff. You see nice things that animals are doing for other nice animals that are different species.
Sure,
and stuff
sure.
Like that. Oh, yeah.
No concept of God. They're not getting their morality from a divine command theory. They're just simply returning the favors. But then you find other animals that are not pack animals, that are loners, that seem to have absolutely no sense of morality. They don't care if they kill and eat their brother that was just born 10 minutes ago.
Right. So how do you explain the existence of a moral sense?
Because we're social creatures. Because that is how that it's the reason we're alive today. It's an anthropic principle. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, the water that's in the crevice somewhere is like, oh man, this is so perfect for me. You know, it must have been created just for me. You know, we have adapted to our environment. It's not, you know, not the other way around.
Okay, so Darwin says, and this is one of my favorite quotes: "On the origin of species by means of natural selection, or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life."
Yeah.
Now, from a Darwinian perspective, what is a favored race?
A favored race in his context. Just, I guess,
your context too.
The regular, you know, classifications of what a race is. You know, I mean.
What does it mean to be favored?
To survive.
Okay, that's
to
right.
survive your environment.
Survive. And then it says it's the favored race.
Favored meaning you made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's the preservation of the favored races in the struggle for life. What does it mean to struggle?
It means that there are things that are constantly preventing you from possibly living.
So the Darwinian synthesis is all about teleology, which is survival, right?
You know, possibly Darwin may have used those words and specifically believed. You know, he struggled a lot with his with faith and stuff like that, and what the implications of his findings. I feel like he phrased it in the only way he could have phrased it.
Okay, well, Justin Mullinix phrases it like this. Tell me, how do you feel when you find a new species that has never been found before?
I have never found one.
If you were to find one, or if science finds something new, a new discovery of something from an evolutionary perspective, what does that evoke in you?
I personally feel particularly excited and thrilled to find out new stuff.
That's right.
But not everybody shares that same, you know, celebrates with the same gusto.
What do we call people who don't celebrate that stuff?
Who don't celebrate discovery?
Or who don't celebrate the glory of existence?
I think there's different ways to do it. I mean, just because you don't celebrate, you know, scientific.
No, the really gross ones. What do we call them?
The really gross ones, the murderers.
Like pathological, sociopath,
sure.
Psychopath with pathology. They have a sickness about them. Why is that?
Why do they have a sickness, or
why do we call them sick when they don't value existence?
Because it's outside of the norm.
Mm-hmm. It's going against the grain of what we all know is right, right?
that most of us feel is right. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So our existence is very, it's purposive. I mean, you can say Darwin, kind of was fumbling around his faith. He wasn't. I mean, it's just
after life existed, there is the phenomenon that we refer to as purpose. Yes.
okay. All right. And so did that life that exhibits purpose, did it arise accidentally?
By accidentally, once again, you mean with no purpose? So it's just kind of saying the same thing.
I'm talking about unintentioned
With no
intentionality. Did that intentionality come up without? Did unintentionality bring forth intentionality?
As far as I know, yes. As far as I know, as far as I know, I mean, it exists here in us.
Right, right. It's magic, right? It's magic.
I see a way for it to exist before life exists. It is a state of life. It is not something itself. It's not like you're referring to it as if it is like a platonic entity or something like that. But it is just a state of our brains. Purpose is just a state. It might as well be a rock's hardness or or something like that. It's not something in and of itself. It is a state that life can be in. Conscious beings can be in.
Yeah, so you're basically saying it is this way because that's the way it is.
Well, what I'm saying is I do know it is, right?
Yeah.
Like I do know existence is.
Uh-huh.
To say that there has to be some universal justification for it, I don't know. I don't know what it would mean to have a universal justification for something like that doesn't exist unless life exists.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in other words, you're saying you can't justify it.
Right. What I'm saying is I don't need to justify it because I know that it exists as part of I exhibit it.
Okay, so it would be kind of like Bertrand Russell's brute fact type of things. I don't have a justified for it, but I just take it in blind faith.
No, I take it because it is useful for me.
That's the whole point. We're talking about usefulness. It's useful to me because it's useful. Well, I'm saying why, if, how Socrates says the unexamined life is not worth living, let's examine our existence here a little bit. Let's put some questions to our...
Let's not assume that we can find all the answers to you have to... If part of
without special pleadings
is examining how far you can go in your justification until you start reaching justification just for justification's sense. Well, I'll tell you what, that's why we have so many conspiracy theorists around. People will often accept a bad explanation over no explanation at all.
Well, that's true. But that's my whole point. My whole justification is rationally justified. When you get people with their tinfoil, 9/11.
Rationally justified too, Trey.
No, they can't. No, most of the time there's no evidence to promote it. That's why we laugh at them. That's why we say it's silly.
Well, an atheist could say the same thing about you know me. I'm not particularly incendiary, and I don't.
No,
I don't spew hate. You know what I'm saying? I know everybody's going through their own struggle. But to say that is the equivalent of being like, that's why we all laugh at theists, man. Because it's completely irrational.
And that's a justified statement because most theists today, we're living in a time of the greatest anti-intellectualism in Christianity, almost in history. And it's not like people are stupid, I'm saying they embrace irrationality. And science does it too, but I mean in the Christianity today, especially in the West, it's like we think it's somehow virtuous to hold on to contradiction, and if you're rationally coherent, somehow you're sinful or second class. So I agree with you. There are a lot of Christians that are totally foolish, and I think an atheist on that level is justified in saying you are being a tinfoil conspiracy theorist, because many Christians do not have any justification for their faith, and other religions as well. So I would agree with you that, but that's not endemic to Christianity.
But they have a justification that suits their needs. If they believe it, then they have a justification for it.
And does that? Of course, you're not going to believe this. You don't believe in correspondence theory of truth anymore. But you say something is useful. I don't understand how that works. If you objectively exist and something is useful for you, then you're saying I need something in my mind that corresponds to something that is in my existence. This was Aristotle's. No. Yeah, Aristotle had an early correspondence theory like that.
Yeah, well, I don't know what it would mean for an interpretation to which is what we have. We have our senses that we sense that reality. We're all presented with the same reality, and we have our senses that perceive it, right? And then what we do is we form an interpretation in our head
Hmm.
that is made of sound and sight and all this stuff. It's just a way of interpreting the universe. I don't know what it would mean to have a correct correspondence with reality. What
Well,
would it mean to
that which works is what your favorite
so there
quip
you
is.
go. But that's not correct. That's just going, okay, well this seems to work.
It's correct in some sense, wouldn't you say?
I'd say it is useful
Okay.
more than because an interpretation cannot be correct. It can only be an interpretation.
On contingency, yeah.
So our ability to decipher things is based on, hey, I do this, it works, I see this works. This is why science is so widely accepted,
Hmm.
is because it works so well.
Hmm.
I mean,
Well, I don't get this. The deification of science. There's nothing. Science just it's sciare. It just means knowledge. I mean, science has always been a part of the. Are you talking about the scientific revolution?
the scientific method. I'm talking about the method.
You look at stuff and you make logical deductions. Is that somehow some kind of
That's an
new thing?
oversimplification, I feel, of the scientific method.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm saying when you follow the method of testing things over and over again to see how they react, to make your data available to other people to see if they get the same results, right? And then you take this and then you move on with it and you say, okay, well, now that we know this, we can make this happen. It works, when we do this. We see that, like, okay, we've done this a certain number of times. I think we can reasonably go along and say, okay, this works. So it's not just making logical deductions from things. It's going, hey, even if you make a logical deduction, which can be completely logical, and you go through and it doesn't match up with what you're seeing in the experiment, and you give it to somebody else, and they go, yeah, it's not matching up.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go with what works,
right?
Not some word soup that is like, well, that's illogical that it's like that.
Oh, well, no, but you don't understand. Half the scientific method is logic. In other words, you observe things with your senses, and then you make logical deductions, and you go from the broad to the narrow. You predicate things about those things that you're studying, and then you just put it into taxonomical. All you do is taxonomy.
For a specific thing, this works. We have computers. We have planes that fly.
By way of rational coherence, right? You rationally deduce. That's how you come to that conclusion.
I mean, you can do the method and do the science without, like I said before, without knowing the philosophical underpinnings, and not. You could be a logical positivist, go through and do the experiment and come out with something useful.
That's true.
It just works regardless of how you feel about philosophy or how.
But whether you acknowledge it or not, you're still using them, right?
You're using the method, which does rely on a philosophy.
Right, and it relies on logical framework, right? To
relies
through the information.
It relies on its usefulness. I mean, that's all there is to it. If science was not useful, we wouldn't believe it. If logic was not useful, we wouldn't believe it. If math was not useful, we wouldn't use it. You see what I'm saying? Like, those, as far as I'm concerned, those are the bases for why we do anything.
Yeah, but you're just what you're doing is you're just closing off the upper story, and you're just saying.
I'm saying
things like that. I'm thinking we need to open up the upper story. We need to think about these things, and let's be open-minded.
I'm completely open-minded. I trust me. I don't want this to be true. I was a scientific realist. I had more of an evidentialist view, which did trust in the basic reliability of the senses corresponding to reality, until one day I ran into a Christian, as a matter of fact, who said, well, what physical evidence do you have that I should value physical evidence? And I was like, oh, that's a stupid question. That's a stupid question. Yeah, and I just
that's logical positivism, basically. What do you just find?
And then I just one day, finally was like, I broke down. I was like, because it works, because it freaking works when I do it, and that's it. And I was like, man, that's it. I believe it because it works. not because it's logically coherent, not because it's this or that.
You're employing logical coherence and you're just denying it. I mean, to me, it's just like you're
What?
kind of like the presuppositions. They skip a couple of steps and say they're starting with something that they don't start with, and that's what you're doing with science. I mean, you're just saying, well, I look at the result and I say, oh, it works, and I'm saying, well, go back and inquire, why is that true? Think about it. Think about it in the big context, and you don't want to do that.
Well, it's built upon small things. You know, the method really is complex. When people first started conducting experiments, it wasn't known as the scientific method. You know, people would just do things over and over again and go, hey, you know what? That seems to work. It's the same reason I believe, rituals and stuff were invented. Something happened, and they go, hey, you know what? I think that this corresponded to that. I think that this, I think that sacrificing a virgin to make the sun come, we did it that one time, and the sun came right up. You know, so I guess it worked. Now they were wrong about what's making things work.
Well, that's what we're all about. We're all about existence. I mean, we've come full circle. That's exactly what we're talking about. It's all about salvation.
Yeah, I mean, we do exist, and
existence is important, but you have not been able to give a justification as to why it's important. You just say it is.
Existence is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just is.
Contingent existence is.
As far as I know, what a justification entails is something like a conscious sentient being saying, well, this is the reason for this, and this is the reason for this. I have now justified this. Justification, in the sense that you're saying it, cannot exist before life exists. There's no and even if there is, even if we can explain why things are here, the process of why things are here and what was here before and all this kind of stuff, to a certain degree, it doesn't mean we have access to information on what, for instance, like you describe as a transcendent realm or a state that is transcendent above this. Like I have no way to access. I don't know what it would mean to say there's a justification in the sense that you mean it, in the same way that I justify like going to the store when I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm not making an argument for that really necessarily at this point.
Well, what I'm saying is that you're saying, well, you don't have a justification for it, and I'm like, okay.
And I do.
Great, but I don't have to provide another justification to show why I don't believe your justification.
No, but you're not going to gain my respect. Here's the deal. We need to close this down, my friend, because I've got to get some stuff done before I go to work, and my kids are waiting for me at home. How about can you just give us a closing statement, or if you don't have anything, that's fine. We can just close it down. But I need to get going here.
Okay.
Just kind of short.
I think that your argument that entails a first cause is somewhat rationally justified as opposed to an infinite regress. I don't go there. I think that you do lose it a little bit when you get to creation ex nihilo, obviously. I think that as far as I'm concerned, you were raised in the Christian faith, and I think that you have a vested interest in keeping that going. I think that you probably had you said you're born again, probably had a personal experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it works for you. I think you feel like it works. My brain doesn't go there. It doesn't go to the same conclusions that you do. But my view also explains why, when presented with the same reality, we come to such wildly different conclusions. So I think we could probably explore that one argument, because I would love, Trey, to get past that argument. And there's been a couple times where I've just said, you know what, I'll concede that to you. First cause, go. Let's go from there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be an interesting discussion. Obviously, this was the first time we've ever had a discussion like this. We could make it semi-regular thing, once a month, something like that. Maybe get online, do a little convo for an hour, and maybe make it a little bit more specific. Now that we're introduced, we've met formally, still digitally, and I have a picture of She-Ra as my avatar. So, as far as a closing statement, not really. We didn't really hash out everything. We kind of covered a lot of bases. Um, but I do believe that you believe what you say you believe, and I do believe that you feel like you're rationally justified. Um, so once again, I don't think you're a delusional idiot or anything that you probably hear from a lot of other people who just write you off. I actually find your certainty really interesting. I think it's really quite interesting. I think belief is interesting, and why you believe things is really interesting. Um, so maybe next time we can just hammer out that one argument and go around that instead.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, I'll go ahead and give you the last word, my friend, and let's do this. Let's do it again, and maybe we can try to focus in on one subject. I like keeping them short. I know I don't like the hangouts where they're super long.
An hour's fine. There's no need for a 3-hour hangout.
Yeah, and it's hard to watch. I don't like watching long ones anyway, but and I got to finish some stuff up before I go to home too. So anyway, with that, I will thank you. And again, my friend, it's nice to meet you finally. Digital to digital or whatever. And looking forward to getting together again. And with that, I will bid you good evening.
All right, thank you, brother.
All right, bye.